99% of the time, you just won't go viral because your videos are bad.
What is this? It's an AI language learning robot?
Speak first. You know, like you can't learn characters without speaking first.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tea Time with Jesse. And I have a very special guest for you all today. This is XiaomaNYC.
I thought we were doing this in Chinese.
Oh, you want to do it in Chinese? we actually did. Oh, okay. Give a short introduction for our fans who don't know you, although I'm guessing that, honestly, probably all my fans know you. So
I am a YouTuber, content creator, businessman as well. And what I do is I make videos on the internet, mostly surprising people by speaking their language, but I do other things as well.
How many languages would you say you got there, though, for like the basic communication?
Around 50.
About 50.
Yeah.
So that's pretty. Yeah. How many?
I've studied more languages right now than probably almost anyone.
I was going to say, like, once you get to 50, that you can at least hold some semblance of a conversation with, there can't be like another 1,000 people up there. So we're going to go over language learning, YouTubing, and all that sort of stuff. But I want to start out by making you some tea. And I asked you back.
This is why I'm here.
This is why you're here. Take a look at the, this, I half drunk through this one, but this is the Qianjiazhai raw pu'er. This is from the tea mountain that I went to in June.
Wow, beautiful.
I mean, honestly, if I could do all my teas like this.
It also just feels really nice. Like
it's
it's
just
nice and crumbly.
the quality of the leaves is great. When you lived in China, what was your favorite like tea to drink or food to eat?
Oh man, I gotta be honest. Like I wasn't a huge tea head in China.
No.
I would say what most interested me about Chinese teas was just all the people walking around with these like thermoses full of flowers. Like it just full of flowers.
Well, yeah, if you go the
whole thing,
the flower tea.
And I was like very confused at first. I was like, what are you drinking? Like, why are you drinking like a cup of flowers?
The cab drivers will have this like like chrysanthemum tea or jasmine tea.
Yeah, it was chrysanthemum, and I was because I had never seen that before in America. Nobody carrying around like a mug of flowers, you know, and drinking that wherever you go. And then also as well, people.
Take a sniff of that. Sorry.
Ooh.
There's good stuff. That's
nice.
good stuff.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So you're saying also people go around
carrying around mugs of just hot water in general. You know, you have just a rushehu wherever you go, just a giant ass thermos.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Here you go. So take a sip. Oh, I love that. This tea, it has like a little bit of lemony flavor in there. It's like very fresh. You know, the raw pu'er, when it's young like this, normally it's like kind of very sharp. But for whatever reason, I always find this to be like super juicy and like lemony, and it has like that nice sweetness to it.
I love the consistency of it. It's like almost milky somehow.
Yeah, the mouthfeel
texture.
The mouthfeel in Chinese say 很顺, 很柔. Yeah, like 柔. The like soft and shun is like smooth.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is the Master Series tea. So these are the ones we literally got straight from the tea mountain. And then put directly into the cakes. They press these all in at the mountain. They have, like I saw it, they have a machine that will do the pressing.
Wow.
They take the tea in like a cylinder and they weigh it so that you get exactly the amount you're supposed to. And then they have a little steam thing that comes through it, so they're just pliable enough to press, and then they have a press that puts it down. And we specifically requested that these are pressed a little bit looser because sometimes with those tight pu'er cakes, you need a knife to break them off, and most people in outside of China don't have a pu'er knife hanging around. Let's start with a little bit of a background. Like, how did you even think to start learning so many languages in the first place? Was it just like purely interest?
Well, I didn't. I started with learning Chinese. That was the first, you know, I mean, summer after high school in 2008, I started learning Chinese, and then I ended up getting a scholarship to go to China, where I went, and there's a whole cottage industry in China of foreigners who are on TV and radio for these competitions where you speak Chinese and you see which foreigner has the best
Did
Chinese.
you do like the Qianjiazhai or something like that?
I didn't do Qianjiazhai, but I did a similar competition on CCTV.
What do you think as like a language person of these language competitions? Like, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it like just completely unrealistic and like for whatever reason only happens in Asia?
Oh, I think it's great. For me, I had a very competitive mindset, and I wanted to have like the best of a language, and so I think I kind of naturally gravitated towards this idea of like being able to compete in a televised contest to see who has the best Chinese.
And it is a lot of fun to go on those shows.
Oh, yeah.
It's like super fun.
It's super fun, yeah. But the thing is, I actually, ironically, given my current career choice, I actually never was very good at it. I was always very good at learning languages, but I never was good on stage. I got so nervous. I was never good in front of a camera.
Do you remember a routine that you did for the competition, or like what kind of thing did you have to do?
Oh yeah, I did some 单口相声. I think I just borrowed some routines from, I think Dashan. I did a couple things. I still remember. This is actually from YouTube, but I still remember there are these things that I've memorized. 推动中美合作伙伴关系不断向前发展。美国总统奥巴马在华盛顿白宫推荐行办公室会见了在美主持第三轮中美战略与经济对话的胡锦涛主席和
哎，说得好，说得哎，掌声鼓励，哎，太好。
It's so funny because people will approach me in the street and be like, "Hey, Xiaoma, like, oh my God, your Chinese is so good. Like, you must be like the best Chinese in the world." And like the reality is like I do speak, very good Chinese for a foreigner, but like I'm not in the upper echelon. I'm in like maybe the top 1% or the top 0.1%, but like there's so many foreigners.
To truly be a linguistic performer, because like Xiang, the actual comedy that I said they call it it's 语言艺术. It's a linguistic performance art.
Yeah.
That's like a whole other level. Like regular Chinese people can't do that.
You have to study for many years, and then when you look at the skill of people like you, but then also Dashan, and also it's French guy Julian,
Julian.
Their level is just so extraordinary, and to get there, you need to spend so much time studying Chinese. And at some point, I just realized like I just don't want to do that. Like I'm not gonna get to the level. I'm not gonna surpass this guy. They've already been there, done that.
Yeah.
I need to kind of make my own way.
There was something that you felt was the combination of competitiveness and striving and language, and then I guess it kind of eventually came out through your YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I liked showing off, you know, and I liked being able to showcase my linguistic skills, and for me it was cool because I was never good at this in high school. It wasn't something that I knew that I could do, and I had studied languages in high school, but I just didn't I never really figured out how to actually learn to speak them. And then when I started studying Chinese, and I actually lived in China for a year, and I got good at it, I was like, wow, this is really cool, and this is kind of a skill and talent that I have for speaking languages.
The cool thing about a language and performing in another language is that people see a lot of the work. In Chinese, they have a saying that 台上1分钟，台下10年功. So 1 minute on stage takes 10 years of work behind the scenes to pull off. And so it opens the audience up to you. They're like more inherently open to being nice to you. And then if you can pull it off by really making them laugh or really making them amazed at the language skill or whatever it is you're doing, then the audience is ready for it. They're there for you to be good. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the first really breakthrough hit that I had on YouTube with an American or English speaking audience, that video where it just got like 80 million views of me speaking Chinese in restaurants. People were like, oh wow, that's so easy. Like I could just go and do that too. And a lot of people did it. But like the reality is it took me 10 years to learn the Chinese to that level where I was able to do that.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like sometimes you create a work that is going to be playing in one culture and another culture a different way, and you just have to deal with the fact that people all over the internet are going to interpret it differently?
Yeah, I mean, you can't as a performer or as a creator, you don't have control over how people are going to perceive what you do, and in fact, it almost isn't like you can't have any expectation on what the audience should know, and the fact that it took you so much time to make this video, like the audience doesn't appreciate it. Well, it doesn't really matter because, if you think about your own personal consumption of entertainment or media, you're not thinking about how much time and money it took them to make this Netflix show. You're just thinking about whether it was good or it was not.
Did I enjoy it or not?
And if it was shitty, it doesn't matter how long it took them to make. You're just like, oh, it was a shitty show. I'm going to click on to the next thing. So as a performer and as an entertainer, I can't, and even just as a businessman, with a language course business, I can't have any expectation on the audience. I have to just do what I think people will enjoy, and sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm not right, and very often I'm not right. And when I'm not, there's nothing I can do but move on.
Yeah.
You know, the next thing.
How do you feel like when you spend, say, like weeks learning a language and go somewhere to speak it, and then the results
Nobody cares.
don't come?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that happens all the time. That happens all the time. The worst is like when I spend all this time and money, and I've spent like thousands of dollars and weeks and months of my time making videos that just turn out to be total shit. And like I think they're cool. And when I post them, I'm like, damn, this is gonna go super viral. But then I post it and like nobody cares, and the comments are all like, this is. Because the great part about YouTube is like, if it's not good, nobody will see it because YouTube just won't promote it to them.
Yeah, this is actually,
like,
I
whatever.
actually have been like, I tell this to people who are trying to get started and like originally it sounds kind of like pessimistic or like it should be depressing, but I think it's not. It's like if you're
Nobody's going to watch your stupid videos.
If you're bad, no one will see it. No one will see you fail. It's actually impossible. If you are good, people will see it. If you are bad, no one will see it. So you really have complete openness to fail when you have no following.
Unless you go viral for the wrong reasons, which does happen occasionally, but in 99% of the time, you just won't go viral because your videos are bad. And or I don't want to say bad, but not interesting.
Yeah.
You know, not interesting to some audience that could be interested in videos.
How do you balance how much of your content is kind of giving the audience what they want and how much is that experimental, you have no idea whether it's going to work?
You know, Google has a nice, I don't think they do this anymore, but they have that 20% rule where, you know, the audience spends 20% of their time, or the employees spend 20% of their time on kind of like free play sort of fun projects. And so I try to do something similar with my content. You know, every 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 videos, I try to do something weird, experimental, or edgy. And, you know, most of the time it doesn't work, but occasionally it does. And sometimes it leads to new and interesting avenues of success.
I always have this like temptation where it's like, one of the reasons I started doing the short videos for the tea is because tea is actually, I think, a really good topic for short video because generally people in the West don't know that much about tea. So hey, this is raw pu'er tea. I could totally talk about that for 60 seconds. But also I sometimes worry that it took me too long to do something like this where I'm like really breaking out of that mold. And I don't know if it's because I would be worried it wouldn't work or you just realize that like, oh, it's not going to be the most time efficient way of, you could make a show like this and maybe no one would watch it, Well,
of course.
Yes.
But you have to assume, when you do that 20% rule, you have to assume that much of that time is going to be wasted.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not really a waste.
Yeah,
it's not really a waste. I mean, the final product, yes, nobody might watch it, but the learning that you get from it is possibly not a waste. I mean, because I've tried so many things on YouTube at this point, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. And that's knowing what you're not good at is almost as important as knowing what you are good at.
I feel like that's the sort of thing that I really struggle with, and when I have succeeded, I've been able to really compartmentalize the thing. I was like, I'm going to make 1 tea video a day, every day, and I'm going to do that for as long as I really can. And in the beginning, it was necessary to get going because in the beginning of those processes, you don't see results in day one. You really need to think of this as like, I'm putting $1 in the bank every day. And if I put $1 in the bank every day and there's interest, one day I'm going to look back in there and there's going to be a bunch of money in the bank.
That's right.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to try another tea. And thank you all for watching this first half. This is Xiaoma. And I'm Jesse, and we'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tea Time with Jesse. We're here today with XiaomaNYC. Thanks so much for coming by.
That was a great ad just there.
That was a good ad. Oh, it was so good, so good. I don't even know what we put there. So we're going to try white tea now. I asked what you'd like. We're going to try this. This is the 2017 White Dew White Tea.
Wow.
I really love these leaves. I'm going to show you these leaves. This is part of the subscription box that launched in November, and it's going to continue through until February, although it'll still be available after that. It just won't be part of the subscription.
Why is it called white tea? Because it is not white.
This is an interesting question. So the Chinese usually...
This looks like leaves I would pick up in the park.
Yeah, look at
that.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
So, and the reason is because white tea, what it is just picked, sun-dried. That's it.
Yeah.
So all the other teas that go through, they're fermented or they're roasted or they're whatever. The white tea is the simplest, kind of purest type of tea you can get in the sense that it's literally just leaves that have been sun-dried. The leaves have these white hairs on them. See if we can show you some of those hairs. This guy has a bunch of them.
Hairy tea.
Yeah, I don't know if we have we'll show you a close-up from another video, but they have these white hairs on them and you'll see them floating around.
Yeah, that is... That's a little peachy. It looks like a little peach fuzz.
Yeah, exactly. And those are called hao. So if you ever heard like silver needle white
Silver
tea,
needle.
the Chinese name is bai hao yin zhen.
Yeah.
It's a hao, bai hao, white hao. Yin zhen with silver needle. It's definitely I think one of the the slept on teas in that it's really tasty. It's very good, and it's sweet. It definitely like fits the taste of a lot of the like American tea drinkers or like, non-Chinese tea drinkers, and yet it's like not very well known outside of China, which is really a shame. Cheers.
Cheers.
By the way, enjoy the white tea.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, it's so fruity smelling. Wow.
It's just like, what do you think?
Wow. I love this. It's almost like a nutty flavor.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an herbal taste to it because it's aged 2017, so that's 6 years aged.
Yeah.
So the aging brings out the herbal flavor, and it'll be even more clear in the middle steeps. But like,
Yeah, I love it.
I just think that the really good tea, what I always look for is like there's a lot going on, but it's not overpowering. Like there's no one note that's like, oh, this is like too sweet or too bitter or too whatever.
It's beautiful color.
Love that. It's a very good tea. This tea has been a hit. We've already had to restock it twice.
Wow.
Which is great.
Yeah, I can see why. It's delicious.
So anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about the cool stuff you were telling me about your AI language learning. What is this? It's an AI language learning robot?
Yeah, it's bilingual speech-to-speech conversation partner. The inspiration for this is just inspired by my direct experience of learning through tutors, which, speaking is the best way to learn a language. Like I've found this through trial and error, having studied with dozens of languages, and having studied more languages than possibly anybody else on the planet at this point, I figured out what works and what doesn't work, and speaking practice works.
Yeah,
and it's not only does it work, but it's also the most effective and it's the best. And then but when I try to tell people like, hey, they're like, hey, how do I get good at a language as fast as possible? I'm like, go find a speaking partner. They're like, oh, but that's expensive, or like, I work weird hours. I can't schedule times with tutors, or like, it takes too long, and I have to schedule like these hour-long chunks, or like the people then hears it makes me too anxious. Like I just don't want to do speaking practice. I can't open my mouth and say the first thing without feeling like they're going to judge me for how shitty my accent is, right? So I think this is where AI can play an amazing role because it's cheaper, it's less awkward, and it's way easier to schedule, and you can do it while taking a shit on the toilet.
Do you feel like the AI language learning translation programs and apps are going to get to the point where they're so good, there's just no reason to learn a language anymore?
Well, we're already at that phase.
You think
and
so?
I don't think that, there's no, right now, translation is already so good that you can go to any country on the planet right now with Google Translate and, get around fine. Like, you don't really need to learn a language for practical purposes. But I'll say a couple things. I'll say, one, people want the human connection. People want to be able to really say something and make somebody's day by speaking the language, and you're never going to get that through an app. Doesn't matter how good the apps get.
Well, it's
right?
like
and when they see that you've done that work and you appreciate their culture, you understand that their culture even exists, is even a thing, then they'll reciprocate, and they'll be excited to see you and excited to see that you made an effort to learn something about them. And that's exciting. And that human connection, that's always going to be a thing. And in fact, I think it's going to be an even greater thing the stronger that AI gets. We're going to need that human connection more.
Well, this is like one of those things
And the other thing that I'll say is, this is almost similar to what happened with chess as well. Like, computers have gotten so good at chess and so much better than humans. Like, right now, you can run on the shittiest PC, an off-the-shelf computer software that can easily beat 9 times out of 10 the world's greatest human chess player. And yet, chess has never been more popular in the world. And it's because, we need things to do as humans that are beyond AI. And we can still study chess and enjoy it as a game without thinking that we're going to compete and exceed humans.
Just from your experiences, can you share a time when you learned a language that maybe is a small or a niche language, and then what the people thought about it when you showed up and were able to speak?
Oh, so many. Indigenous American languages, Navajo, Ojibwe, Yucatec Maya, To this day, I get emails from native tribes around North America asking me, like, can I come to their community and learn their language and, help promote their language and culture, which are in many cases sadly dying out, and like that's like the most exciting
That's really
emails
cool.
to read, right?
What kind of challenges do you have when you're learning, say, like a Native American language? Are there anything specific about them from the language perspective, linguistic perspective?
Oh,
or
they're the hardest.
They're really hard.
Yeah, North American languages tend to be extremely difficult because they're agglutinative and like
No gluten
they're
free?
just they're very they just work in very unexpected ways from that you would never see in Eurasian or African languages.
Do you give an example?
So Navajo, for example, has animacy where depending on the noun class, the like you can't say the bird pecks the girl, you have to say the girl was pecked by the bird because the bird is less animate. It's like a kind of a lower spiritual order and so you have to constantly keep the word order in mind. But then also additionally, like verbs are extremely complex and everything is made from a stem. So to say the word for example plow, you need to construct that from the root word for dig, and then you have to modify it with like 6 different stems, to talk about how deep the digging is and like what time of year the digging is occurring and who the speaker is and all of these different suffixes and prefixes in order to change the meaning of the root. So it's like trying to construct a language out of Lego bricks. Really what I do with most languages when I study them is I'll transcribe them how I hear them using English phonemes and the way that things sound to me in English, and I'll use an O where it feels appropriate to me and a U where it feels appropriate, and I'll just create my own ersatz idiosyncratic representation of that language when I using the letters that seem right to me.
So if
which
there's
kind of is awkward when I will share those notes with the native speaker, and they'll be like, "That's not how this is spelled." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's just my own kind of convention."
Well, that can really trigger a lot of people who spent their whole life teaching their language as a second language.
Yeah, it does trigger people. It triggers teachers occasionally, but I know that I'm right. I know it's
well, you might be right for you.
It's right. It's right for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that generally speaking, I think too much time gets paid in language learning to reading and writing, and not enough to speaking and listening.
Yeah. Well,
which are far more important.
And this kind of brings back the question: is it underdone because it's difficult to test? Or is it underdone because, people really don't value it as much? Because I have the suspicion that because doing one-on-one speaking practice is so time-consuming that the educational system has just basically ignored it because how would you do it with a big classroom of people?
I think that's exactly right. I think it's underdone because it's hard to do in an educational classroom setting.
Yeah.
You can't pair up, you can't have one-on-one speaking practice in a classroom.
All the more reason to get the AI
Speaking
going.
practice, right? Yeah. AI and but also just better classroom experience in general. I mean, I think that sitting there and listening to your teacher drone on for 45 minutes is a perfect way to spend 7 years of your life learning a language and come away with nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this is such a classic mistake that I think a lot of Chinese teachers, for example, will make. They'll say, "Hey, well, we need to learn how to write the Chinese characters first." And why? Because that was their experience in school, was learning Chinese characters the first day in the classroom. Yeah. But what they actually misunderstand about that experience is that their day one in the classroom, they actually spoke fluent Mandarin. They came into that classroom having literally spent years of their life perfecting spoken Mandarin, speaking at a level that almost no foreigner will ever approach. Mm-hmm. And they learned that Mandarin through years of immersion with their parents and with friends.
The best language environment possible.
The best possible language immersion environment, already speaking Mandarin at an incredibly high level, and then you come into the classroom and on day one you learn characters, but you already speak perfect Mandarin.
Well, that's the thing.
So when you teach a foreigner how to speak Mandarin, speak first.
Yeah.
You can't learn characters without speaking first.
Yeah. I mean, thank you again for coming on. I think we're probably about out of time. I want to do a couple last lightning round, one sentence responses. So just quick okay. Lightning response round for Xiaoma. Okay. What was your favorite language to learn?
Navajo, just because how crazy it was.
Okay. What's the language that you were most surprised that you enjoyed to learn?
Welsh.
Welsh.
Just beautiful language. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. The sounds, the language, I just loved it. And also the experience of going there and chatting with locals in Welsh was really cool.
I bet they love that.
They thought it was really cool.
What's the best gift you've been given by somebody after they've discovered you've learned their language?
Free food, free stuff in general. I love like getting free food from Africans or Pakistanis or Europeans, you know, when I speak their language. It just is exciting.
If you're trying to learn a language but you're just frightened to speak, what is the one thing that you can do to try to get over that fear?
Yourteacher.ai.
Oh, whoa.
Thanks, Jesse.
There we go.
Yeah, where you can learn to speak and practice with an artificial intelligence language tutor.
Very cool. So I'm really excited about this. I mean, I really have... I've been hoping to talk to you more about language stuff for a while, and it just so happens you're in LA. It's great to have you over at the tea house. What did you think of the tea?
Oh my God, it was great. I love the tea. I love the white tea. I love the pu'er. Delicious, and I'm a little bit tea drunk.
Yeah, a little tea drunk over here. So I'm going to give you this to take home with you. You can keep the rest of the white tea. And for all of you, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on the video, be aware we have the full episode of this available on podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. The links will be in the description. If you're listening to this on the audio, know that we come out with highlight versions that are edited for YouTube and also on all the Shorts channels. Teatime with Jesse. I've set up like new channels on all the different platforms just for the show, hoping that eventually this really will grow and we'll get even more amazing guests like Xiaoma on here. This is kind of the goal. Like, I feel like there's so much great stuff that kind of just happens around tea. Yeah. And so that's what I'm eager to share with everybody. If you're interested in the teas, all the teas that we are drinking today are on my website. You can go get them. The tea tables as well, the tea pets, the tea equipment, even the tea scoop. All that stuff is on jessesteahouse.com. All the stock is in America. We have a warehouse in New Jersey, so we ship out within 2 days. And it's a really great way to not only support the channel and support the show, but also you get like great tea. So you have anything else, last thing you want to share with our audience?
Check out the teas. Great stuff.
Check out the teas. Very good. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Xiaoma, for coming over.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you guys next episode. Have a good one.
Cool.
Bye.
Cheers.